Welcome to this meeting of the Buckinghamshire and Milton Keynes Fire Authority. The meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to the service's YouTube channel. I'll just ask those that are on the Teams meeting at the moment if you can make sure your cameras are off and then just indicate with your electronic hand if you wish to speak or contribute at any point. So we will start with apologies for absence.
There's Carol, Christensen and Waite.
Thank you. So minutes of the meeting of the Fire Authority held on the 11th of October. Any questions, comments as to accuracy? We're happy to approve. Thank you. Moves us to matters arising from the meeting on the 11th of October. So the first matter arising is FA 19, the Operational Assurance Improvement Plan, which included recommendations from Grenfell and Manchester Arena, would be presented at the next authority meeting in October. This has been deferred to the December meeting and is on the agenda today. A member asked if the slides from the presentation by the Group Commander, Community and Business Safety Policy to the annual meeting could be circulated to members, and that's been done. FA 26, 2025-30 CRMP listening and engagement consultation outcomes. Chairman asked to report on the on-call strategy to be brought to a future Executive Committee meeting and then Fire Authority meeting. The Interim Chief Fire Officers advised that this could come to members next year via a members workshop. FA 27, People Strategy 2020 to 25 Year 3 update. Chairman requested that consideration be given to having a staff survey later in the calendar year, as has been noted in some sectors. Surveys in January can produce more negative responses. The Head of Technology Transformation PMO advised this would be deferred until later in the calendar year. When are we doing it?
Yeah, so we were going to go with Fed, but on further discussions with the new chief, we're not going to go with the first week.
April.
Yeah.
Right. You feel so far away at that end of the room. FA 28, extended time period of the BFRS response strategy. Chairman asked if there was an awareness campaign that service could run about storage of solar panels, etc., and provide advice to people on how they best protect themselves. The Head of Protection Insurance and Development advised the service do not provide specific advice in relation to solar panels during safe and well visits. Incident data confirms numbers are very low, and there's only been one reported incident in Buckinghamshire over the last year, with solar panels being identified as the cause. Our crews have operational guidance and training to support responding to fires in which they are involved.
We're having a job.
Sorry,
We're having a job to hear you.
are you?
You're talking down and I can't hear you.
Okay, thank you. I'll try and
be a bit louder. I can hear what you're saying.
apologies.
You're a bit missed at the moment. Okay?
Apologies. I will. I won't be reading.
Well, I wasn't going to ask to start again, but if you could just be a bit louder, we could follow what you're saying then.
That's fine. Is it recorded?
Annalie, can you hear the record? Can you hear the audio? Okay.
Yes. Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, moves us on to item number 5, disclosure of interest. Any pecuniary interest members wish to disclose? No. That moves us to Chairman's announcements, which are in front of you as a hard copy. And the first thing I just want to say is to welcome Liz Harrison, our new Chief Fire Officer. Welcome. Great to have you on board. I won't go through the Chairman's announcements. We've got quite a lot to get through today. But if there are any questions arising from Chairman's announcements? No? Okay. That moves us on to. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry, Councillor Jones.
Yeah, I had one question, and I know to do with your announcement. Sorry, I've only just seen them there. So it's about the lease unit at Unit 7. Obviously, some as Mark. Hi. As Mark and I have discussed, the information about what was required in terms of the blue light hub being used is not. I've had to try and verify that with Milton Keynes Council. Actually, those conditions are not on it. So obviously, we've had a bit of a chat about that changes the economics around some of the things. So I just want to make sure that everyone's aware of that, and of course that we are considering using the blue light hub for. Given we have an empty floor, and I think the public would be rightly concerned if we're spending a lot of money on a building when we have an empty floor in another building.
So that's a good point. I had a good meeting with the Head of Planning at Milton Keynes a couple of weeks ago, and we explored kind of alternative uses for the top floor. they've been really supportive. We're going to follow that up early in the new year to see what we can do through the planning process there, and we'll bring back some options to members in due course.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Just can I add, Councillor Darlington, that we're not spending a huge amount of money on exit Unit 7, and it will pay back in a very relatively short space of time. So just to reassure all members of the authority, we're not spending a huge amount of money on Unit 7, and it will save the authority money quite quickly.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Slattery?
Yeah, just Chairman, to please item 10, you've got white ribbon on the agenda. It's nice to see that you've got people outside today. It's White Ribbon Day. And you know, something that we all should be conscious of, something that we all should consider, and draw your attention to your own statement on it. I think it's important that we actually, as an authority, are supporting that, and as we are trusting to the public purse. So, although on the point raised by Councillor McElroy, I'd like to see the figures on that, that we've not spent a lot of money, and then we can decide whether it was a lot of money.
Yeah, it didn't happen in isolation. We all saw the numbers. I don't know, Michael, you just want to share the numbers?
I haven't got them at my fingertips, but they did come to previous executive committee for approval.
We can recirculate the numbers, but the business case went through executive. Good. Moves on to item number 7, petitions.
None, Chairman.
Thank you. Item number 8, questions.
None, Chairman.
Great, which moves us to the Firefighters Manifesto presentation. So delighted to invite Chris Witchley, who's the local FBU representative, to talk to us about Firefighters Manifesto, which I think all members will receive. We had a discussion about it a couple of weeks ago as well. So over to you.
Oh, thanks for the invite. So yeah, I appreciate that you've all had prior sight of the documentation. So what this is in effect is the FBU's national position in terms of our demands for the current and any incumbent government that will come in the future. There's a load of areas in there, and what we've done as a union within Buckinghamshire has pulled out our improvements agenda for our service. But there's a few areas within the documentation which I think are quite important, and largely it's centred around continued investment and no further cuts within the fire and rescue service. I think if you reflect in terms of what Buckinghamshire's position is since 2010, we saw a 43% reduction in firefighter numbers within Buckinghamshire, highest percentage loss of firefighters in any county. And whilst we've seen some increase in terms of our numbers, we as a union in Buckinghamshire don't feel that that's still at what would be an acceptable level with our establishment level set at 300. So largely it is centred around investment and no further cuts. Again, one of the key areas is pushing for a minimum safe crewing of 5 on fire and rescue on appliances, on all appliances. What that enables us to do as firefighters is deal with incidents effectively, to maximise an operational effectiveness and being able to deal with quite significant incidents very quickly. I think if you look typically at a house fire in isolation, dealing with that with 9 individuals or 10 individuals is far easier and far quicker to have early intervention than it is to send 3 fire and rescue appliances, crewed with 4 each, getting 12 people there. So again, massive concerns in terms of the erosion of that standard and looking to progress that into the future. Talks about a new statutory advisory body and the formation of what our professional standards are and having involvement as that as the Fire Brigade Union. A statutory duty on flooding, major flooding response and wildfire response. Fire and rescue currently isn't funded to deal with flooding, but yet we deal with it anyway. So it's something that it's constantly eating away at our purse strings, and those incident types are becoming more and more regular and more prevalent. So, like I said, there's 25 points within the manifesto itself. But what I'd like to do is just go on to what Buckinghamshire's improvement agenda is. So the first point on our agenda is around decontamination, the decon campaign. The research was done 2 or 3 years ago now. And what it showed is that firefighters are massively at risk of developing and contracting cancers at much earlier ages against the normal population, up to 360% increased risk of esophageal cancers, for instance, And one of our colleagues, Steve Bailey, tragically died this year through contracting cancer at an early age. So what we're calling for in terms of our position on this is cancer screening, yearly cancer screening, and that to be actioned quite rapidly. The adequate monitoring and recording of firefighter exposures takes place, and I know there's work going on in these areas. But it's about getting them more effectively and quicker. But all of the effective decom policies and training across Buckinghamshire Fire and Rescue be adopted. Supporting as an authority presumptive legislation for occupational injuries to do with cancers, and also it's something that we've raised for a number of years, pledging to the Dying to Work Charter in memory of Steve Bailey. So I don't know whether you'd like me to run through it and or ask questions at the end.
You run through what you want.
Yeah,
We'll
okay.
certainly come to that.
So that's the area of decon, and we've listed out our recommendations or demands of this authority to take forward. The second point is around retained recruitment, retention and availability. So in this county, we have 10 standalone retained stations. We have 17 retained appliances. Yet what we seek to achieve is 3 on a regular basis. Of course, if we get more, we're happy with it, but our minimum standard is 3. What we've seen over a number of years is we don't even meet that standard. So what I think we need, and what we're calling on the authorities to conduct a root and branch review of our retained recruitment, retention and availability, to evaluate different ways of working and job specifications, support the NJC process ongoing nationally in reviewing terms and conditions, and to set higher targets of availability and seek to address that issue. And I think what's quite clear is if we don't have those resources available the majority of the time, that we need an increase of whole time and day in appliances into the long term. So that's point 2. The third one is around extreme weather planning and prevention. So what we obviously notice as firefighters is we are going to more and more instances of those natures, whether it be wildfires or flooding. And whilst we have a statutory duty to deal with extreme weather in terms of wildfires, we don't in terms of flooding. So like I touched on before, we don't get the funding to be able to deal with those instances. I think what we need to do as an authority is ensure that climate change is added to our risk register. Second point being procure the best appliances, equipment, PPE and training available to deal with these incident types. What's to do with wildfires? Support the call for flooding to become a statutory duty, as I mentioned, and ensure that we have the adequate resources in place and firefighter numbers to deal with these incidents safely. I think one of the hardest jobs that most firefighters go to is dealing with a wildfire. You are expected to wear structural firefighting PPE in really hot and progressing conditions. And I appreciate you being to the right is trained to a certain level in terms of wildfire spotting and whatnot. But they're really arduous conditions to deal with as firefighters. And what we have is fewer and fewer numbers attending those incidents. And we don't have the rotation of staff coming to support us that we necessarily need. And something I'll come on to later is around our over-reliance on overboarding resources also. And what we saw with last year's instances, we had firefighter incidents for 4 to 6 hours, whereby they were ineffective after 30 to periods of an hour. Needed rotation staff. So that is around, and what we also have on the in terms of FBU resources it's called the Scorch report, specifically to do with wildfires. The case for increased funding, ensuring that's mitigate the dangers of that mitigate. Our fourth point is around crewing. So we recognise the increase of our firefighter establishment over the last year. I appreciate we're up to a number of around 316, 317, depending on who you talk to, but our budgeted establishment is still set at 300. We're only getting to a point now where we're regularly seeing 12 appliances on the run, which is our minimum provisions for our communities. What we need to see as the FBU is that establishment figure is set at 320. going forward, and that progressive increases are planned. I appreciate the disappointing news that we had yesterday in terms of precept flexibility and that only being increased to 3%. That's obviously going to make a lot of these issues challenging and more challenging to address. But otherwise, that is key in terms of firefighter safety and public safety. It's making sure we have the resources in place to deal with this. So that is our first recommendation. Second being that successive increases are planned year on year, like I said. The positive crewing of our turntable ladders is active immediately. We have more and more high-rise buildings being erected around the county, and we need those appliances immediately available to be able to deal with incidents of that nature. We do not want to see an incident like Grenfell tiles in this county without any sort of resources to be able to deal with it. That also goes on to being able to procure higher reach capability appliances in the future. And what we actually see in High Wycombe is that typically the turntable ladder will be jump crewed with only one appliance at High Wycombe, which is quite a second biggest area within Buckinghamshire. We need, like I keep on saying, we need the people there to be able to do the job we ask of them. And that fourth, that we move progressively to crew in 5 on-bar appliances, as it touched on earlier. Fifth area, equality, diversion, inclusion. We stated for a couple of years that enough work wasn't being done in this area. We appreciate it was an area that was picked up by the HMICFRS. Obviously, there's an action plan in place, and that's addressing a lot of areas. What we feel we still need is good quality, regular training for understanding, for individuals to understand the implications of words they might say, actions they might have around their colleagues. But we don't currently have that. Everyone within our organisation is stretched to its limits, delivering areas within the organisation that they're not probably equipped to deal with. We need someone that's an industry expert to be able to deliver on this area. So we call on for an uplift in quality training of all staff at ED&I, and mandatory training and quality assurance takes place. The Fire Brigades Union has a document called the All Different, All Equal policy. It's similar to our code of conduct within Buckinghamshire. And what it does is set out the expectations of our members in the way in which they treat each other. We have an investigation process if someone falls foul of those rules, just as you would internal investigations. We'd like that incorporated within our policies, that process takes place as part of any discipline investigation that takes place. A big area, an assessment of required infrastructure changes. We've allocated fundings for inclusivity. We have a number of sites around Buckinghamshire. I use Newport Pagnell quite regularly as an example, but we have a female changing facility which is covered off of the mess area. That's been an issue for however long, but with the first female member of staff in the station there was approximately 6-7 years ago. Been an issue ever since then. I don't think within a modern fire and rescue service that's acceptable. I've held meetings within a female changing area within Gerrard's Cross Fire Station because there's no available meeting space. Even with this station, brand new station, we set out our expectation for in terms of equality and inclusionness across our service with a female locker room which is a quarter of the size of the male locker room. Yet we look for an accurate representation of our communities within our firefighting. We set the limit of our expectations so low that it's impossible to achieve going forward. And we have no adaptability within this current situation that's easily afforded. And also call on the authority to support the fight for 52 weeks for maternity pay for firefighters with links to cancer prevention, decontamination and cross-contamination of from breastfeeding mothers to their infants. And again, there's a documentation support that I've attached and I'm happy to circulate this agenda after the meeting. Number 6, commitment to industrial relations. So again, I'd like to welcome Louise to Buckinghamshire Farm Rescue and hope to have a working relationship onto the future, maintain the good working relationship we've had. but we recognise that there are changes in senior management and the need to navigate through difficult times. We affirm our commitment to maintaining good industrial relations. Whilst we seek further improvements in working relations, we call on to book in NJC joint training at the earliest opportunity, an ongoing commitment to support the Grade Book joint protocol, formal access to additional meetings to include the Business Transformation Board and Work Forward Planning, and a revision of facility arrangements and NJC joint protocol to be adopted into our policies and procedures. Number 7 is around pay and conditions. So I think it will come as no surprise that Buckinghamshire firefighters are still alarmed at the regression of our pay in terms of against societal norms. A firefighter today, comparatively to 2010, is still 12 to 15% worse off, £4,000. We obviously went through a period where industrial relations become more challenging, but we're able to navigate away from strike action. Firefighters overwhelmingly supporting the 7 and 5% payoff. Eventually, we ended up with. It still didn't address the years and years of real-term cuts to firefighter wages. So it's going to be an ongoing conversation until that position is addressed. And whilst I appreciate the authority can't reach into your own pockets and deliver that, but you can have an impact in terms of what your planning assumptions are into the future to enable pay progression. We call on continued support, increase pay for firefighters to make this position clear through all of the available means to have as an authority. To support the national NJC framework for pay progression and negotiations, to maintain assumed pay increase planning above inflationary levels, return all overtime rates of pay to Grade Book standards to include the bank rate, and to formally explore, as we've had informal conversations around Buckinghamshire waiting allowance and make funds available to that end. Number 8 is around infrastructure planning, stations and training. So along with the needs that we've already identified in terms of our retained capability, action is drastically needed in training infrastructure and our whole time day crew capability to meet the needs of our communities. You've had a significant increase in terms of apprentice firefighters, and what comes with that is the need to train effectively with realistic conditions. We feel as if this area needs urgent attention and investment, and we lack good quality in-house facilities to be able to train effectively and progress as firefighters, the main operational competence. We suffer from not having an in-house facility. Travelling to the fire service college for validation is great, but if you can't effectively challenge yourself in realistic conditions, you're going away to be assessed. You're not being trained. So again, we call on for quality in-house training facilities for our safety critical functions, BA being an example, but there are many. Whole-time or day crew solutions in Princess Risborough and the Western Milton Keynes, as well as any other identified, and that's about putting in a solution there, whether it be whole-time or day crew. Options considered for Amersham Fire Station. I know there was conversations that took place about relocation to Chesham Fire Station, which would be more feasible to accommodate a whole-time pumping appliance, and looking at that long-term into what that looks like. And an overall increase in training budgets to align with staff increases and inflation. So we've got 2 more to go. So number 9, infrastructure, again, around the facility improvement programme, noting the examples I gave around Newport Pagnell and Gerrards Cross. There are many, inclusive of our new stations. If you look at every site, there are improvements that need to be made in terms of inclusivity and diversity. And that goes across the board. I appreciate the work that's done at the ED&I group, and I appreciate they have a budget of £25,000 to make amendments, but what they typically are sticking clusters on longer term issues or underlying issues that without proper planning and infrastructure investment we cannot address. We call on again proper planning investment to address the shortcomings. ED&I at the forefront of property and infrastructure planning. An open and consultative approach to station improvements, that's speaking to staffing groups about what their needs are. An open channel for seeking improvements. Regular station audits supported by the Brigade Health and Safety officials, which does take place, but needs that to continue on into the future. And transparency and quality assurance of decision making. Number 10, last one, you'll be pleased to hear. Firefighters fit for the future, we've titled it. What is, like I touched on before in terms of cancer prevention, cancer screening, with the understanding that firefighters have a longer career than they traditionally have. In a maximum pension age of 60 with 40 years served, it becomes harder and harder for firefighters to realise that aim. And also the difficulties within society in terms of getting medical intervention. We feel the need for there to be subsidised medical insurance, private medical insurance for firefighters. Earlier intervention in terms of injury or illness is key in terms of longevity. And we see that as being a fundamental issue. With Berkshire have a similar package for their firefighters, we see no reason why that can't be looked at and explored into the future. Again, touching on the point of yearly cancer screening and health monitoring, investment in targeted funding for associated schemes to that end, nutrition and fitness planning for firefighters, a refresh of gym equipment and provision across the service, and a second phase of EAP offering specialist target assistance. Whilst EAP is really good for certain situations, what it is an early intervention into people who may be going through emotional hardship, mental health crises. What happens when those individuals get to a place of crisis is really difficult to address. Accessing anything through societal norms is really difficult. You can be on a 2-year waiting list to seek specialist intervention. So we have a period in which firefighters are stagnated in their careers and been able to have their communities work better. You see that as an area that needs to be explored. That encompasses what we consider to be Buckinghamshire's improvements agenda for 2024. Absolutely appreciate that it will be impossible to address every area within a year. But what I think is key is having a plan to try and rectify those issues over a number of years and continuing to seek investment and added revenue for yourselves to these aims.
Great, thank you. Really helpful list. And I think one of the things that I suggest that we do is that we'll formally respond to the improvement plan you sent through, which I saw yesterday. This morning. We'll bring that back to the Fire Authority and we'll come back on each of those points. And I know there's a number in there that you and I have discussed in meetings as well. So we'll definitely do that. Let's open it up for questions. Councillor Hall.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Chris, it's been a delight to have you here today. We don't very often get to hear direct from the coalface, as it were. So it's nice to have people on the ground level that are doing things day to day and hearing a different perspective. So it'd be nice to see you more than once a year, perhaps, and you come along, you can interact with us and you can tell us your concerns. I can't say that I disagree with anything that you said, to be quite honest. We've just lost a councillor in Princes Risborough who was a former retained firefighter and a senior officer of this service. And he had esophageal cancer. So that really does bring it home. So that decontamination thing really does concern me. And also when you talk about jump crewing at Wickham, I had heard from time to time that Wickham's gone down to 1 pump. So what you're basically saying is we've got 8 whole time there for 2 pumps and we take 2 and put them on the turntable ladder. So then we can just go down to 1 pump. Is that what you're saying?
I mean, it depends on the day. Firefighters may be sent out to cover other areas where leaving just 4 firefighters apply Wickham. 4 firefighters typically to cover the fire and plants and turntable up.
Okay. Yeah. So that's something I think, Chairman, we need to look at. And everything else you said is pretty much budget related. And obviously, as you know, budgets are quite tight. But I think, yeah, a good presentation and you've given us all food for thought. And I really welcome your input. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Guthrie.
Yeah, firstly, welcome Harrison to the meeting, but there's always been a bit for firefighter meeting, and thank you. And thank you, Chris, for the diligence and professionalism that you prepared this report. Now, what the key question is, and I think we can share, is how we actually take these things forward, how we gradually work to actually address them, rather than say thank you for them and park them to one side. It was interesting and alarming, the health issues and how people work safely in the environment we put with. So that needs to be addressed, and I was alarmed to find out we have another station which is not addressing quality in the same changing the facilities, but we have an inspector's report. And I think my view would be, and I don't know what the chairman thinks, my view would be that this is an aid to actually those points on the inspector's report. Some of the points that are in this could be an aid to helping us work together to resolve those issues, to answer those questions. And it's only too evident to us that the finances of the local authority challenge. That needs to be concluded, I think, in London to make sure, and the 3% doesn't look very helpful when it comes to the 3%. Thank you for pointing that out. But firstly, it's very, and lastly, I'm very grateful for this. I do sincerely hope we're going to use this as a part of our audit and governance and the way that we go forward. If we don't, we'll be missing an opportunity.
Thank you. What's this saying next?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think very interesting to hear from this, and I think it's nice for you to be here to explain to us what needs to be done and how can it be improved. My one concern was that I was ready to report. You mentioned about cancer screening. I just wonder what is the current position or what's the current status at the moment. I know it's being looked into by the service. I think what we'd like to see is that accelerated a bit quicker, because obviously by having that yearly intervention in terms of a blood test to identify early cancers is then to get the necessary treatment needed. At this stage, it isn't in place. I hope that we can work effectively to get on place in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Darlington. Councillor
Oh,
Darlington.
sorry, I thought Councillor Fuller was first. But...
No, I've just called Councillor Fuller, so I've got the list. Don't worry.
Oh, okay. So huge thanks to you, Chris, and the rest of the team. I know you work with the team to pull this all together, and absolutely agree with Gary that, you know, it'd be great to thank you at more of our meetings and have more interaction at board level with you all in both formal and informal settings, which I know we already do. This is fantastic, and as Councillor Sutcliffe said, it addresses many of the areas of the HMI FRS report. And really, if we are going to be able to respond in the time frame for the HMI FRS report that we're all hoping in terms of that improvement, it is going to be staff fully buying into the changes. And I think the FBU has a huge role in that, because you are close to the members, close to the front line in that. I just wanted to pick up what you're saying about ED&I. And I think you're absolutely right. We can make these pledges like white ribbon and that's different. If there isn't the training, bystander training and other sorts of things alongside, actually, we're not really supporting people to change that behaviour. But actually we know is still happening, and for the majority of people, they feel very uncomfortable by it. Very much that they want it to change, but they don't necessarily know to change it. And so I just think, I don't want to go through all the points that other people move around health and facilities, but I think that your point about training on ED&I and that regularity of it is such an important one, and one that it's not unique to that. Great to see it accelerated and for us to be leading the way.
Thank you, Councillor Fuller.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. I echo everything my colleagues say. I was interested, I picked up on the health issues around the cancer screening, and specifically around the mental health crisis and the lack of a joined up support. Mental health is close to my heart, and it's something that can impact. It's not like a broken leg, you know, you can fix it in 6 weeks. It's an ongoing and often a very difficult journey for those people. And I would welcome anything that the authority can do to help those individuals through that particular process. as I say, it doesn't just impact on the commercial market, but often impact on the family life and the home life as well. I think it's incumbent on us to do the best we can for those individuals.
Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, this for coming, and I had a chat outside with some of our local lads from Newport, and thank you for raising Newport. I'm not sure whether you can answer my question, but from your discussion about contamination, getting changed in a cupboard doesn't seem as though we're addressing that at all. So I'm going to be visiting the station myself on Friday morning to have a look and see for myself how the cupboard works. But the one point that was raised with me that I thought was really interesting was about housing in the places where we've got vacancies and where we need to recruit. And it occurs to me that most of us sit on, all of us sit on an authority that deals with housing and planning. So I thought there was something there that perhaps we should be looking at in terms of some reserved housing for those areas where we are in fact looking to recruit. And certainly I can think of a couple of areas where there's new development coming along where that's possible. Do you think that would be of assistance to your colleagues?
I think it definitely would. I think specifically around a crewing stations where you have to live within a certain parameter of stations. Obviously, an area like Hampshire, which is very difficult to recruit within for firefighters, is still a day crew station, which is why I touched on looking at options. But we still have firefighters, like I touched on around pay progression for fighters, where it's so significant down in terms of real-term wage against what we were in 2010. The housing market has rocketed to have almost a black market in rental properties. If there's any assistance that can be led in that way, especially towards our young firefighters, like I said before, we've had a massive increase in terms of apprentices, which are typically younger firefighters. I'm sure that any help that can be offered can be appreciated.
Thank you. Councillor.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you, Chris. I reiterate what Gary started, most of us commented what you've spoken to us in regard to the manifesto. I'm sitting here looking at the Environment Agency flood warnings at the moment, and there is a flood alert not very far away from here. I was fortunate to go out with the Newport water crew the other on a month and see how much training they do. I also ended up standing in the field in the village where I live. There was a field fire, that's the first report, one of the first appointments of the four-wheel drive. And I also have been on the portfolio for climate change, so I would fully support it. Recently, Mark, hopefully in the new year to get the plans together to see what we can do to enhance our support for firefighters, both in the water and in the hot field. So, thank you very much. Those are comments.
Thank
Thank you, Chairman. And, Chris, thank you very much for coming today. I read the manifesto in full detail. It's very good. And as the tagline on your manifesto, it says, our service. Thank you very much, not just for your service, but for the service of all of your colleagues. I wasn't aware of the situation regarding Newport Pagnell. So I will personally, as lead member of Finance, Property and Assets, look into that. Where we have been alerted previously to issues in stations, notably Gerrard's Cross with the chairman on his visit on Christmas Day, and some issues with Wickham, where I was involved in ensuring that the welfare and rest facilities were improved. We will try and action that. So again, any specific concern, please do share with us. So, again, thank you very much for coming. The only thing I would say is obviously you've provided a very comprehensive list of things that we'd like to see enhanced for your members, but there isn't an unlimited pot of money at the end of the day. We've had a very, very tough financial year. We've seen our utility bills rocket. We have restricted ways of raising our income. So I appreciate the fact that you said it's not an exhaustive list, but in reality, not all of it would be possible to deliver in a short space of time. I appreciate the fact you recognise that for us, finances are a challenge as well. So thank you for being honest in that respect.
I think that's why it's so important to recognise the limitations within our funding model. Buckinghamshire has about 7% from council tax, yeah, it's typically capped at 2%. I think it's shocking that it's been only increased to 3% in the calendar year. That gives us no scope to be able to address a lot of these issues, which are root and branch issues within our occupation. we are put, like I touched on before, we are putting sticking plasters on problems which are much deeper lying and need a longer term strategy to address. And if we don't get our authority into at least a mid-range position in terms of precept, we're never going to be able to address this. So I absolutely identify the difficulty in terms of funding, but that's why I think it's so important for this authority to put a clear position in terms of progressing that year on year and doing it by all means, taking up any opportunity for that to grant.
Any other questions before I? So just a couple of things for me. So firstly, thank you again for this. I sort of think it's characteristic of what I hope is a constructive relationship that we've got, and certainly, you know, I value the sessions that we have regularly where we go through a number of these issues. We will definitely come back on each point, and we'll make it a regular part of the authority meetings to track how we're doing on the improvement plan. Just to pick up on Councillor Walsh's point, I would welcome a relatively quick response on the station issues where we've got easily different issues, because we shouldn't be having those. We do need to address those. So we'll pick that up and get a response just to members this week what the plan is, and with each of those that would be really helpful. We are about to enter the budget planning cycle, so clearly we haven't got as much money as we would like, and yesterday's news was disappointing. But I think hopefully you've seen that as an authority, we are committed to try and drive up the firefighter numbers, and I recognise that we're not at the level that you want at 320. I think we're at 317.
That's for starting.
Yeah, 317. So, you know, certainly that was a priority that was set out last year. We wanted to do that. I think you can see that starting to feed through into availability, but we totally recognise the point that we're making. On retained firefighters, you saw when I was running through the matters arising that we are wanting to get into more detail around how we can address that as a national challenge. Again, if you've got ideas and suggestions on what we can do there, I'm very much welcome that. And then I think the health issues will definitely, again, make sure that we come back on something. Those are you know, really important and concerning for us to address. And then I think just the final point you and I talked about a couple of weeks ago, I totally agree with you on training. You know, and it's definitely on the agenda for us to look at ways in which we can improve that. So we will again come back on that. But thank you very much for coming. We'll definitely invite you to a future meeting as well. And thank you to all your colleagues that were waiting for us outside as well. We've got to chat with them. Thank you. So that moves us on to item number 10, health and safety policy. Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm presenting the health and safety policy to you today, which we will be asking for your approval at the end, and I will be asking Daniel to speak to it, please.
This policy details the safety management system in place within the organisation, which allows the authority to have adequate systems in place to deliver the following. So develop and implement policy and procedures, clearly define its organisational arrangements, identify the roles and responsibilities of all in relation to health and safety, plan and adequately resource requirements, and measure and review its health and safety performance. The safety management system, which we adopt, is HSG 65, which is endorsed by the HSE. Within the document, it provides details of the authority's own approach, which follows the four broad sections that sit under the Plan, Do, Check and Act. The key objectives of this policy are to reduce the number and severity of work-related injuries and ill health, including mental ill health, to reduce working days lost due to sickness, absence, and the associated costs and liabilities, to ensure the authority maintains its current compliance with legislative requirements in relation to health and safety matters, to ensure full reporting and investigation of all safety events, near misses, hazards, and work-related ill health, to include the quality of all procedural reporting systems, policies, to procedures and information systems relating to health and safety, to maintain thorough, adequate information, instruction, training, supervision, and appropriate level of knowledge and understanding on health and safety matters, and to continue to monitor, audit, and review current systems and procedures in relation to health and safety. This policy document has been long-standing within the service and has been updated to reflect the current content, which reflect the current content which is in place and relevant to the organisation. That's it for me on that one, thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Stutchfield?
Yeah, firstly, thank you very much for the report. Secondly, having we just received manifesto, is there any points in that manifesto which resonate with you within the report, which we can pick up and move forward, which is at pace? And lastly, when this report was probably drafted some time ago, was it drafted prior to the inspection or was it drafted after the inspection report? And does any of the actions within this report reflect any reflection in the management inspection report to make sure that our government scrutiny doing that is conduit with a good journey?
Yeah. And so the policy was drafted prior to that. So the majority of that content is pretty similar to what it was before. However, there were certain bits that were out of date, which we've updated to reflect what we currently do. So in terms of your point regarding the manifesto, the main thing I would say within that policy where we detail the audit process, obviously that will pick up things such as the decon process where we can identify things that we can move forward to improve within the service, and also within that audit process, we invite the union representative to join us with that. So through that medium, we can then speak to staff during that audit. We've got a union representative there to highlight any issues, which we then go to the station manager and the group commanders. And again, anything in relation to decon and facilities are mainly the big focus of that audit in relation to the other aspects of health and safety, which is set through a single culture. Those question sets are reviewed on an annual basis prior to the audit process.
Thank you. Just, if we drafted this in advance, if I research my contract, what you're saying, it's augmented or changed to, we've got any augmented change with respect to the inspector's report? Because I may have misheard you, and if I have, I apologise, because you said not that the report was drafted prior to that. It wasn't, you weren't able to draft this report in limiting information that was there. Would that be fair?
So, I suppose positively, what the HMI report gives out is the organisation has a good health and safety culture and good practices around health and safety. So, in terms of this policy position, that provides us the framework to which, you know, the practice kind of follows. So, I suppose what I'm saying is we're still comfortable. Policy does the things we need it to. It doesn't mean, in terms of how our staff interact with health and safety, we should always be learning, reviewing, etc., etc. But as Dan described, we've got systems in place to pick that up, and probably the next paper is one where you can explore that one. But we're pretty confident from our HMI stuff.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Like, okay, you're being asked to.
I just had a really quick question. This is a very high level document. Doesn't get into some of the detail that we just heard from the FBU. Is there a action plan that we'll be able to see that looks and builds more into those themes around mental health, around cancer care, around PP for wildfire risks that could come to the board or come to the relevant subcommittee for review? Because it's hard, it's put that all in this document.
Again, I'm probably happy to pick that one up. So in terms of health and safety KPIs, to some extent that'll get picked up again in the next paper. Probably, there's sort of other issues there in terms of contaminants that also will get picked up through our governance, whether that's through business transformation board or also, for example, business transformation board last time round, there was a project approved around contaminants. So managing that whole UPAM recommendation. So pretty comfortable that the things that were mentioned in the FBU presentation, whether it's picked up directly through health and safety or other groups.
Just to supplement what Doug said there as well. We have a health, safety and wellbeing committee. It used to be the health and safety committee, and wellbeing is now part of that. And Councillor Hall is now the lead member for that, and previously the vice chairman was the lead member on that. And the FBU are represented on that group as well. So a lot of those actions are captured within that. And the decom piece is a standing agenda item, as is wellbeing as well. So the minutes from that meeting and the actions from that meeting are all captured, and I'll be happy to share those with you anytime you wish to see them. But it's all kept under that one umbrella. But as Doug quite rightly says, you know, there's lots of projects going on in other areas that feed back into that, which is to give you the assurance that it is all captured as.
Okay, being asked to approve the health and safety policy, members happy to do so?
Agreed.
Thank you. So that moves us on to the health and safety annual report, health, safety and wellbeing annual report. Councillor Hall.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I'm presenting the health, safety and wellbeing report. I'll ask Dan to speak to it and ask at the end of it that you note the report.
So this report this year focuses on the key projects that have been ongoing or implemented during the financial year, such as the T8 replacement project, the new health and safety reporting system, employee wellbeing and contaminants update. Safety event stats for this year identify that there's been a decrease in the number of vehicle damage safety events by 13.6%. However, there's been an increase in the number of personal injury events and also an increase of 20% in the number of equipment damage. More detail is provided in the report. And finally, please accept my apologies. I want to highlight that on the last table, on the last page, the years have been incorrectly. The first column should state 2021 to 22, and the second column should state 2022 to 23. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from members? Councillor Stutchbury.
Well, firstly, thank you for the report. I picked up, thank you, Doug's point about many of the points being represented in the report, and thank you for thanks for that. And you had, I think it's page 13 or page 8 as well. I mean, the push to be the first generation around contaminants in the workplace is a laudable aspiration, the right aspiration. I'm glad that you've got that in it. That's also mentioned in the first section of the manifesto. So I'm really pleased that you're looking at that, and I thank you for health and safety laws and ongoing pieces as well. You learn something, you learn that it's changed. So I'll split that up because you got it, and I thank Doug. Thanks for drawing my attention to those elements of the report. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councillor McLean.
Thank you very much. And firstly, thank you to Dan and his colleagues in the team. They worked very hard, highly thought of, and has been mentioned. Coming out of the HM, honestly, FLI's report, health and safety is in a good place. It can always be more done to it. I'd like to, as the lead member for health and safety and wellbeing for the last couple of years, as I'm handing over to Gavin, I can assure members of the Fire Authority that a great deal of effort has been put into the decontamination. On page 1381 of the accounts, it's actually referred to that UCL Lancashire, University College Lancashire report was 199 pages on decontamination. I will admit that I did not read all 199. I read the summary and the actuals to ensure members that I think we are going at least as far as the recommendations in that report and slightly further. It's also been mentioned in mental health. We have 37 mental health first aiders in the service, and we've also got 22 trained trauma mentors for people who come back after an incident. So I think we're doing a great deal there. I'd just like to say thank you again to all people in the service trying to be safe as they can be. I know the Deputy Chief Forester was very agitated about the number of incidents with vehicles. It can be quite robust in the meeting, so it's good to see that's coming down. So thank you for the report, Daniel. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you. Councillor Fuller.
Thanks. I mean, I just wanted to pick up here. You've mentioned the things that were in place at 22 mental health that's the entry level stuff. What I'm interested in is where we can find some more information about following that, if it's a mental health crisis, and how we work through with those individuals, who I'm sure they're probably, the low level mental health first aider stuff is useful, but there comes a point where it becomes professional intervention, and how do we support individuals in that? And equally, is there, am I missing something, or is there somewhere here that we would want to build in an employee wellbeing, the annual cancer checks? And so that we are doing our best by our people that are on the whole post.
Okay. Do you want to go back on the new?
No, I don't know if it would be helpful at a future meeting to have a presentation from our wellbeing officer that would come in and present as to everything that we have in place. We invite Graham in. I think he'd be able to, sort of bring all of that together, because we do have referrals processes. I wouldn't want to, sort of, I know exactly how it all operates, but we do have a wellbeing officer who'll be able to take you through that. And I think, a 5-minute presentation at a future meeting might be helpful. And then any advice you have, you can feed that back in into our processes, so we can set something up for future meeting. I'll take those actions.
Sure. Good. So we are sorry. Thank you. So being asked to make the health, safety and wellbeing performance detailed in health, safety and wellbeing annual report. We have to do so. Great, thank you. That moves on to item number 12, the protection strategy. So I think the paper sets out why we're looking at the protection strategy. So both as a result, obviously, of the inspection report, some changes to legislation with some new guidance from the NFCC. But it is worth noting that including the CRMP will also feed into the revised protection strategy at that point as well. And on that basis, planning over to Dan.
Thanks, Chair. Very little to add, to be honest. I'm happy to take questions and comments. Essentially, as the Chair identified in the exec summary, there was a requirement to bring forward a revision to our protection strategy with a view to provide more clarity and direction and clear objectives in respect of how service will deliver its statutory duties within the regulation reform. Particular focus around high-risk premises, but also acknowledging the requirement to deliver a broader agenda of business safety engagement and the primary authority scheme. For members' note, the appendix guidance document, risk-based interventions, is not for approved members, but I thought it would be useful to provide assurance that the strategy is backed up with some kind of detail and some things our staff can work to. Both of the documents have been peer-reviewed by colleagues in the NFCC. And they've also been shared with our HMI service liaison lead, who is satisfied that these go some way to meeting the criteria as laid out in our action plan. After taking questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Johnson.
So I'm really pleased that we've moved forward on this and really pleased to actually you join the team to help drive that. As we know, this is one of our key criticisms of the service, and I guess what I'm missing from this in terms of feeling confident is these are the principles. Yeah. Where how many buildings, how many businesses, because we've always been behind on some of our businesses. We looked at that before. We said we couldn't do it fast enough. IFRS said we weren't doing it fast enough. So where we have some reassurance that we are then moving faster, and where we have situations like we were just discussing in Milton Keynes, where quite frankly developers are not moving quickly enough, do we have enough legal support and other support within the service to allow you guys to put that pressure on the developers to make those improvements that need to happen as per the regulations following the referendum?
Yep. I'll take it in some sort of order. So as you say, the strategy ultimately is designed to set principles about how we can operate in our protection. Proof of pudding to some extent is then in the delivery, of course. So we put in place KPIs for audit numbers. What those audit numbers link to what we've created by way of risk-based inspection programs, so that very high risk and high risk set of buildings that we've identified through a methodology that does sit in there. That part of it grows up about 3,000 buildings. No, apologies, 2,500 at the very high risk, 1,500 at high risk that we will audit on schedule. And that was one of the areas that HMI really challenges us around in terms of our understanding of that risk. So some of that to some extent now becomes how we embed that into the service, the ways of working, how we target our activity. I'm really encouraged already that our audit numbers have really gone up. If I'm honest, November didn't meet the KPI, but I expect that. I expect probably a few months where we would be pushing and having to kind of adapt the ways of working, et cetera, et cetera. In terms of capability, actually what the inspection report did acknowledge, and I think I sense right in terms, we do have good trained people and probably the right numbers. We just got to target their activity. As I say, you mentioned some of the more difficult buildings, so there's probably a couple of strands to that. So the creation of the Building Safety Regulator under the Building Safety Act will tackle some of those more challenging buildings going forward, both in terms of new builds and retrospective high-risk premises. So that's multi-agency, in which the Thames Valley Fire Service play a role. The legal side of things, we have access clearly in service to legal support, but it is something we've identified in our HMI action plan actually, that further really specific fire protection legal support would be helpful to us. And we're looking at options around that now, using our protection drive funding to support that. So yes, principles, now we need to do the doing and kind of make changes.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Doug, for the report, but a couple of things I want to bring down. We all know that buildings are designed over a period of time, so historical, some art stuff on the media. What I'm always quite concerned about is that when buildings are retrofitted and meet new fire standards, that are we consulted about that? Because we are more likely to understand what the risks are, and also do we pay up to those premises thereafter. And you need to know if those premises and our firefighters are entered them have got equipment. It all makes a difference to the programme, the safety of our team. And if we haven't, are we resourced enough within the authority to be able to do some enforcement around that if issues are raised? And lastly, do the local authorities, major planning authorities in the area, feed into you and seek to be consulted a consultation on these premises and on amendments premises? Because one would imagine that the fire authority probably understands more about fire risk than the planning officer understands about because that's what you deal with in risk day to day. And good fire risk and good assessment saves lives, saves time, and protects the public. So I'm not seeing that here. And if I'm physically going, I do apologise.
Yeah, no problem. So probably the majority of that is picked up in the appendix items, I think, around some of the other activity in addition to audit. So we are statutory consultees on a number of building consultations, which will include alterations. So our protection teams should be informed when there are significant alterations going on. For example, the classic example is office building that's being refurbed into residential, carries a high risk because of documentation requirements, etc., etc. So we have to assume that we are receiving the consultations as per the requirements set out on those responsible persons, and we will respond to those accordingly. And that is one of those protection activities. Our protection teams work closely with our crews and our response teams. So a combination of them sharing information so that this can have risk visits. Equally, if the crews on their risk visits find they come across a building under construction, we reasonably expect them to talk to our protection team. So it's covered. I can't say nothing falls through gaps because we only know what we know in terms of how responsible persons perform their duties. More assuringly, I suppose, thinking about higher risk premises and the Building Safety Regulator, under the new regulator, there will be a retrospective audit process, if you like, over the next 5 years of 12,000 high-rise buildings across the country. So that should again do a deep dive, pick up any problems. Going forward, planning consultations are getting much more robust, certainly for high-rise buildings, going to be residential. So there's effectively a process in which there are a number of hard stops that can be introduced if the developers aren't meeting the requirements set out by a number of partners, including fire, around their fire safety arrangements. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you. And just that hopefully the public will know about it, but automatically that being nurse, that being.
And those are exactly the types of buildings that should feature on a risk based inspection programme and do feature in the risk based inspection.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. Councillor Fuller.
Sorry, I might be a bit beyond the, when we talk about community risk, and you might know, I wonder, we live in a society where more and more people with vulnerabilities or mental health issues are being housed in, social housing, and the very nature of their chaotic life leads to them being a high risk of flooding. And I wonder if there's a piece of work that the council has done in Milton Keynes, I couldn't speak for the other borders, in Milton Keynes to identify those properties and share that with our colleagues. I don't know if that can be done, should be done.
So again, there's probably a few strands to that. So obviously we work really closely with partners, and there's partnership boards both in Milton Keynes and in Buckinghamshire, and probably what you've described in terms of some of those societal challenges strays both into the prevention world and the protection world. So prevention very much will pick up those that live in kind of normal private dwellings, if you like, in terms of taking well referrals from partners, risk identification, etc. The protection side of that is probably more when you're looking at the legislative requirements around the building. So prevention of people, protection is probably the building and meeting its requirements. And again, back to the point from the council discussion, there's certain high risk premises like care homes and shelters, housing accommodation that, where identified, we undertake appropriate activity to mitigate risk of fire.
Sorry, John, looking at me, Chair, can I just, so I think Donna raises a really important point, one that as the cabinet member for housing and adults in Milton Keynes, we do talk about. It is a better process when it comes to sheltered accommodation and areas in where it's individuals that are placed either in private or council in the community. I think we still have improvements to make.
I think that's my concern, having heard what Chris said about prevention being something that we aren't able to do as much as we would like, coupled with the fact that these, as I say, these individuals lead chaotic lives. And it will impact on other members of the community. I just wondered how much work there is done and how much more we could do. But that would be done.
I definitely think this is something that I'm happy to make sure you have those conversations in Milton Keynes as we've already done on some of the high rises. And because I'm sure that offer would be there as well. But I think you're right to identify it as a risk.
You put your hand up. Okay, just a couple of things from me. So firstly, thank you. The paper was really well written and easy to follow. One of the other things, as you point out, saying the HMO report, it does refer to the team being well resourced and well trained. One of the things though that they did pick up was a decrease in confidence to take prosecution activity. And it just be helpful just to understand a bit about sort of where you think you now are with the team on that journey and what sort of things we're doing to increase that confidence.
Yeah, of course. And
sorry, just one of the. I'll do it all in one go. And then just on the equality impact assessment, just one sort of minor thing just to note. I don't think you've answered question 9, but I assume that's a no. You didn't answer question 10, so I just wanted to update the impact assessment just to answer question 9. But on question 7, it refers to an ongoing issue relating to evacuation of those with disabilities from high-rise residential buildings that hasn't been fully resolved. BFRS will wait further guidance. Could you just talk to us a bit more about what's that issue and what's the?
So bear with me on this. So what page was that on?
It's page 121, page 7 of the session, 121 of the back.
It's the PEEPS issue done.
Okay, yeah, okay, so that's around, essentially, I've got off the top of my head what each stands for.
That's the evacuation.
Thank you, yes, so it's the tricky one because the responsibility sits with the responsible persons of the building around being able to evacuate vulnerable people from those buildings. But the reality is, in a lot of cases, they don't have the provision to make that so. So if you've got, particularly if you've got simultaneous evacuation requirement, plus stay put policy, responsibility doesn't sit with us, it sits with the building owner or responsible person. So it's something that's working its way through nationally in terms of guidance and requirements, really.
So just to add to, there was two consultations. So there was an initial consultation that came back following the recommendation around personal evacuation plans. But then when they realised there was a lot of issues around GDPR and everything, there was another public consultation. So they're working through that consultation.
Yeah, sorry, and prosecution.
Yeah, so and I can't remember exactly the wording of the report. I can't remember if it's specified prosecution or enforcement activity, but either way, we did some triangulation with staff. So as this strategy was working its way through our internal government system prior to coming to authority, we kind of did all the staff and trying to understand some of the broader HMI issues. And one of the things that surfaced around that was it wasn't so much a lack of confidence around enforcement activity. And actually what we see is our enforcement numbers compared to our, to the audit numbers are actually quite healthy. So non-satisfactory outcomes are actually quite positive in terms of demonstrates we're targeting in the right places and our staff do have the confidence to kind of take measures around enforcement. What we sort of triangulate, I think it comes more to that prosecution end when it gets a little bit more difficult is probably the wrong word, but when you do need that real specific kind of knowledge or legal support, etc. And that was one of the things that took us to the actual plan and the recommendation around some bespoke, protection legal support so that we can make sure we have all the bases covered. The other thing that we uncovered, I think, in that workshop to support that enforcement and prosecution activity was a review of policy. So the suite of protection policies actually needs a review to make sure that they are in line with what we expect to deliver and the clarity again to the staff is there. So,
okay, because it is quite interesting, and when you set it out in the report, that the legislative landscape looks quite complex and increasingly complex in the building safety act. So it's good to know that that's the plan.
And just to add to that, I was the National Partnerships Council meeting last week, and they're in the process of setting up a central enforcement and prosecution team that can assist us with complex buildings. So I think that's where some of the gaps are, because it's such a bespoke area. That a lot of services are in the same situation, so that's being done centrally to assist other services as well.
Good. So we're being asked to approve the protection strategy. No sense to do so. That moves on to item number 13, which is the operational learning insurance progress against the Grenfell Manchester Arena inquiry recommendations. You doing this? Yeah, so I'll hand over to Matty.
Thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon. So this report outlines the services approach to operational learning and assurance, accounting for local, sector and multi-agency events in which we can identify and implement improvement. Focus of this report is to update on progress against two significant inquiries, recommendations, both the Grenfell Tower inquiry and the Manchester Arena inquiry. It's incumbent on us as a service to take learning from all sources available to us. It's a well-embedded process in our service. It's managed by our operational assurance team, and they take learning from exercising, station assurance visits, incident monitoring, operational feedback, debriefs, national operational learning, and joint organisational learning. And it's incorporated into a dedicated operational assurance improvement plan. One area we also take learning from is our external inquiries, such as the Grenfell Tower inquiry and the Manchester Arena inquiry. So as a result of the Grenfell Tower inquiry, Buckinghamshire and Milton Service undertook a significant amount of work to enhance how we manage the risks associated with large and complex buildings across the service delivery functions of protection, prevention and response. And much of this work has been delivered in collaboration with our partners to ensure operational alignment. We adopted 46 actions from the Grenfell Tower inquiry phase 1 report. And to date, we've completed 37 of them with 9 outstanding actions. Of those 9, 5 sit with Thames Valley Fire Control, and 3 of the remaining 4 have been adopted into the Thames Valley Command Support Project, which has been run by Buckinghamshire. You'll see on pages 133, 134, 135 of your report some of the benefits and some of the benefit realisation from the Grenfell Tower inquiry as we kind of approach the end of that process. But to pick out a couple for you, we've introduced a slew of training packages and guidance documents, and we've run a programme of training and assurance exercises. We've instituted a programme of engagement with occupants of high-risk, high-rise buildings by our prevention teams to give personal fire safety advice to the homeowners or the people who live in those properties. And all of our high-rise site-specific risk information has been updated for every site, including the recording of external planning systems. Phase 2 of the Grenfell Tower inquiry is due to be released soon, and we do expect some recommendations from fire rescue services, although we will see can't be sure until that's released. For the second external inquiry is the Manchester Arena inquiry. It's very fair to say we're very much at the beginning of that process, whereas we're at the end of the Grenfell Tower inquiry process. The Manchester Arena inquiry made 149 recommendations, and we have 74 of those recommendations have been incorporated into a dedicated improvement plan following a gap analysis. 50 of those recommendations are standalone fire and rescue service recommendations, and 24 apply across multi-agency environment. That's doing include the fire and rescue service. We've been working closely with Thames Valley Fire and Rescue Service colleagues and also partnered with our local resilience forum to ensure we've got an appropriate and coherent response to the recommendations. Monthly Thames Valley Manchester Arena inquiry working group meetings commenced with representations of 3 Thames Valley Fire and Rescue Services and our Thames Valley Fire Control Service colleagues. A single action plan has been created to ensure alignment, progress and response to the recommendations. Progress with the action plan delivery is monitored by the Joint Emergency Service Interoperability Principles Strategic Group, which feeds into our local resilience forum. In terms of what we can see being delivered already from Manchester Arena inquiry, a new national set of marauding terrorist attack operating principles have been instituted and are currently being implemented for 3 blue light services. The primary intent being emergency responders making quicker interventions at these kind of scenarios or incidents, which was not the case with the Manchester Arena inquiry, the Manchester Arena attack. Secondly, a new mass casualty triage system with 10-second triage has been signed off by NHS England and is now being rolled out across partner agencies. And it's designed to regional emergency responders as a single system to train tested by bus partners, so with our partners. Many of the recommendations in all of these reports relate to response to major incidents. And in the last HMRC FRS report, we were rated adequate in that area, but our approach to these inquiries and dealing with the recommendation only strengthens our position in responding to major incidents. And I'll be happy to step into that.
Thank you. Any questions, Councillor Slattery?
Yeah, thank you for the report. I'll fix the funding issue around the funding the actual work to implement. The funding we received grant funding support is necessary additional work. And when it comes to the implementation of the whole recommendation from the report, this is going to be ongoing, it's not, and all the findings of the report now finally been addressed nationally, if they're going to be addressed by us, because these things very quickly move off the agenda nationally, but they stay on our agenda for longer. And I just need understanding that we are resourced and the resources to do this work necessary is there, and the timescale of the recommendations are in the report, but is there additional stuff which is coming out still that we may have to implement?
So sorry, I haven't got that total figure for you in terms of the funding, but I'll look to report that back if that's okay.
I thought it was in the letter.
There's a number of different,
that's why I was trying to add it up, but my secondary school maths wasn't functioning particularly well here. I got to a figure and I thought, well, I'll ask you.
I can't give you a figure, but I can probably help in terms of just a bit of an understanding of funding. So there was an initial fairly crude distribution of funding based on number of high-rise buildings in each different fire service area that was designed, as Matt said, to deliver some of the recommendations. What that then developed into was what was known as a protection grant funding, which was slightly broader than residential tall buildings, which we still receive an annual allocation. I was at the NFCC Prevention and Protection Conference the other day, and the expectation is that funding will continue for another year, possibly two. But ultimately, the Home Office position will be over a period of time. We should be able to build our capability to meet the needs of the built environment within our kind of base budget. So we can find you the figure, what it's overall, but that's kind of the position. It was for a period of time to address those recommendations.
Thank you. Just to understand it, we've got a pre-kept and council long time, but budget in that we need to understand these things where they're growing. The support you get if it's an increased increment that we have to fund, the government won't fund it, they pull back from it. That's another thing that we're picking up within our budget, which was funded externally. That's why.
Thank you. Any other questions for us? Right. So the report reads really positively in terms of our progress. So I'm going to ask a slightly unfair question, which is what is, if you were members, what is it that we should be concerned about where we're not making enough progress, or we need to provide additional support to? Because clearly, Grenfell in particular, it's important that we do stay on top of it. So yeah, what should we be concerned about?
So some of the reason for some of the actions of the Grenfell Tower inquiry report not having been met is more the national picture. So a lot of we've waited for national operational guidance for our control function. So we knew it was coming. We can't complete these actions until it comes out. So it can delay the process a considerable amount of time when the NFCC maybe, pick up a more important stream of work and it doesn't come out when we expect it. I feel confident that as a service, we allocate the resources that we need to. We have a dedicated station commander who sits and monitors these reports and drives this forward for us. I think the difference between Manchester, we've learned some lessons from the Grenfell Tower inquiry, did it a little bit more in isolation. Manchester is very much a Thames Valley approach. I feel positive about it, and I probably couldn't highlight a real risk for you.
Yeah, so for me, there's probably a couple of things. One of each. So, from an operational perspective, we are in much better shape than we were pre-Grenfell in terms of some of the learning recommendations. There's still an issue around national operational guidance and firefighting in tall buildings, but that's currently working its way between, I suppose, NFCC, FBU, and the Health and Safety Executive. But from an ops position, that's something that's kind of still hanging on, if you like, to be resolved. The bigger risk for me is the speed of remediation. Now, I guess I'm talking nationally, but we know at least one example in Buckinghamshire where responsible persons aren't doing the things that they need to do quickly enough. And the longer that continues, the longer people are at risk, ultimately, including our firefighters, should we get called to such incidents. So that's the massive kind of like thing that keeps me awake. From a Manchester Arena perspective, we're doing a lot of good work, and as Matty says, we're partners in both, but also from a fire and rescue perspective. Again, a kind of national body challenge we're having at the moment is around the role of a firefighter and the non-specialist response piece. So there's some areas we've got to work through in that, insofar as London and Manchester pay for that capability and recognise it as such, whereas actually as a service, most services in the country need to navigate that in a slightly different way to make sure that we can get people on the ground quickly.
On the responsible person bit, how can we help with that? What would help you to address that?
So I think my previous service, some of the work we did was to engage MPs, just to really kind of push that matter as strongly as possible in Parliament. So we talked to Berkshire MPs around the risks in their areas and kind of highlighted it. So it's probably that lobbying bit. There's probably some influence into kind of local authority CEOs to kind of give us the support there, and we're doing that as your officers, and ultimately it's predominantly our legislation and our regulatory requirements, but as kind of key partners, their influence will be really helpful. It's kind of putting pressure on big building companies to speed things up, I suppose.
So Louise and I are due to meet with all the MPs over the next few weeks, as part of the instruction. So if you could provide a briefing for us of what you need from the MPs, and we can certainly drop that into the conversation. And I'm sure we can also reinforce the messages into the local authority CEOs as well. So thank you. Councillor Barnes.
I mean, Doug and I on that in terms of Milton Keynes, the key thing for me would be, as you pointed out, Chair, we are not taking a lot of, what did you call them? I call it legal action, you call it something else, prosecutions. I do think we need to start setting an agenda. I think there's a complacency with some of the developers who are dragging their heels in this. I can only refer to Milton Keynes. And the human cost to that is, well, there was a fire, it's enormous, but also even without a fire, we have individuals that are stuck without being able to sell their flats, getting into debt because insurance has gone up by 680%. It is very, 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 very difficult for those individuals. And I think it's, I think we have those additional powers now, and I think we shouldn't be afraid to use them. And quite frankly, I think Doug and I know exactly where to start with that and who to start with that. The other thing I just wanted to raise with Maxi, close to both of our hearts would be Milton Keynes Stadium. Are there specific things from the Manchester inquiry that we could, that we've done already working with the stadium to ensure that we are ready for any incidents or the improvements that are being asked of us in those kinds of facilities?
Yes, so some of the recommendations in the report that don't necessarily apply to the fire and rescue service often have to go into those stadiums in terms of their preparedness for this kind of thing, and also the contractors they employ to staff those events. So there'll be a lot of those kind of things, but where that crosses over, there's a few around specific risk information that we hold. So information on so one of the recommendations for buildings and those contractors who operate those buildings are around stretchers and having multiple stretchers available, and then where it falls into us is how we store that information and make our crews aware of how we can access the facilities that are already on site. So there will be work ongoing with that.
Yeah, happy to help and stick anything if that gets stuck with the team and the world.
Thank you. Thanks for that.
Thank you very much, Chair. You did actually speak to the people, responsible persons concern raised by yourself, and I'm glad that you've asked for a brief that you can take with you. But in that brief, is it possible to not just about talking about the MPs, but the builders, every responsible person that you are aware of, real and potential, so that it makes it easier in that discussion for that to be taken forward? Because sometimes having that direct contact or conversation does go a long way. So I think if that's possible, I think it would be helpful.
Yeah, provide something to Chief and Chair.
Councillor McKay.
Just picking up on something that Emily mentioned, going through my mind as the answer's given. You referred to the bowl, the stadium. We've also got the bowl, which has a number of events a year, which I would call not quite pop-up, as it's there, but there are events that involve a significant number of people that are put together by a promoter. How would we know that something such as a concert or a festival for 3,000 to 5,000 people in the field, that we were being informed early enough, so that you would have to make plans?
That's a good question. I don't know the ins and outs of how we're informed, but I know that we are. And one of the outcomes of the Manchester inquiry already is the introduction of operational response plans. And we saw it at the AI conference that Bletchley Park worked really well, where we engaged with the organisers at a really early stage and our partners, and police and SCAS. And we have got a new template that we use to brief all of our operational staff about what's going on and what they need to know. So we do engage, and our protection teams also feed into us when they find out about things that are going on. So we do engage at the earliest opportunity, and the Manchester inquiry is already was an improvement in that area.
That's more the point. Yeah, thank you for that. We all knew about the AI conference and we're well trained. I'm not suggesting it's a rave. I'm talking like someone says, I'm going to promote a concert or a weekend of music. Where does that ever, is it a question we might be lucky to find out about it rather than the promoters?
No, we will always find out about it. There's safety advisory groups, and there's also through the local authority and local resilience forum. So anything that as there are certain thresholds, once that threshold is met, then we will be advised if it's an organised event and we'll engage with that. It's the same as, I know the Grand Prix, we always know the sort of time that it's coming round, but it still goes through that exact same process. So unless it's an illegal, sort of pop-up rave, then we will be informed. And generally, Thames Valley Police, if it is an illegal pop-up rave, they've got intelligence on that, they'll let us know anyway, well in advance. So just to give you some assurance, we've also got the NILO network as well, so which is the National Interagency Liaison Officers. So again, most things come through that network as well. So we normally get hit a number of times with it. So give you some assurance.
Thank you for that reassurance, both.
Great, okay, we'll move us on. Bring us to make the report. We're happy to do so. Great, thank you. Item number 14, internal assessment. So the Fire and Rescue Authorities, so you should all have a copy of the letter. The timings, as you see, got a letter on the 15th, had to respond by the 1st, so it wasn't the easiest timeline. I think we've submitted exactly the same response, haven't we?
Yours was slightly more nuanced on the first point.
Right, okay.
Chairman,
yeah. Was it good nuance?
Yes, yours was slightly more political, Chairman.
Oh, I think so it's worth saying actually that the response is just consistent with what we agreed as the submission from the authority to the white paper, so it's not inconsistent with that. So we've just been asked to note this. Any questions, comments? No, happy to note. Thank you. Item number 15, which is HMI CFRS, Buckinghamshire Fire and Rescue Service 2023 Action Plan. I'll just hand straight over to Emily.
Thank you. Good afternoon. So on 17th of November, 17th of October this year, Buckinghamshire Fire and Rescue Service received our 2023 to 2025 round 3 HMIC FRS inspection report. The report was presented to the Extraordinary Fire Authority on the 24th of October with input from HMI Rulership. One of the recommendations at this meeting was that the interim CFO be delegated to prepare and publish an action plan on behalf of the authority in consultation with the chairman and the vice chairman. The approach we have taken with the round 3 action plan includes the plan being prioritised on the actions needed to meet the recommendations, the associated actions being clear, measurable and achievable, and the plan being filled with feedback from both the chairman, the vice chairman, the NFCC and other partners. The action plan, which can be found in Appendix 1 on page 149, was signed off by the chairman and the interim CFO and submitted to HMIC FRS on the 15th of November. In a letter received on the 21st of November 23, HMIC FRS informed the service that we would now be entering the supportive engage process. The focus of the engage process is to assist us in finding ways to improve and resolve the identified causes of concern and provide a better service to the public. All services who are in the engage process are discussed at the Fire Performance Oversight, FPOG, which will take place in February. To ensure focus on the HMIC FRS action plan and to support the engage process, the service is setting up a HMIC improvement board. Ongoing updates will be shared to the Overview and Audit Committee and the Bar Authority to ensure there is ongoing scrutiny. These updates will include progress on the recommendations, impact on KPIs, and capture progress on the areas for improvement. The service is already working hard to address the issues raised in the recent inspection, and we welcome the support of HMIC FRS, NFCC, and other partner organisations assisting us with our improvement journey. I'll now hand over to the Chief to share additional information on the approach we are taking to the engaged process.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. I just wanted to reassure the authority really of sort of what we've got in place already. So my first day in, we had a meeting with HMIC, spoke to them about our intentions to stand up, as Anne-Marie says, an improvement board straight away, because it's really important to demonstrate we've got grip of this and we know which direction we're going in. They were really comfortable with that. So the improvement board I will chair, and then it will be a small fold effect team where we will hold the SROs to account really in terms of tracking and monitoring the progress we're making against those action plans which you've seen. Really important, I think we've involved NFCC and sought their advice and counsel. So they are going to provide a lead to sit as a critical friend for us as well. So we've got almost an outside and peer review kind of process in place, particularly on some of the areas that we think we know we need to make some quick wins on and quick improvements really quickly. So I think that senior critical friend would be excellent for us in terms of just keeping, giving us perhaps a different perspective that we've not considered yet. So that's really good. I know Nick's done a lot of work in the background. So I know we've spoken to the Commissioner of London, who's opened his doors, basically invited us down, because they've been in the engaged process as well, and they're quite happy to share what they've done and how they've done it. We're very alive to the fact there's huge economies of scale there. So they've got, they've got huge resources, etc. But we're also linking in with our peer sort of fire service family, which I think is Gloucestershire, isn't it? And again, we're speaking to them because they're also in the process. So lots of really good work going on. I think our first meeting is next week. As Anne-Marie said, we will report into you on updates in terms of progress. I think we've got some key milestone meetings set in. I think HMIC are coming in, aren't they? Is it the week after?
Yeah, the 19th.
Yeah, so we're confident, we're comfortable, we are on track. We know what we need to do, and we've got that support embedded now to achieve it.
Great, thank you. Any questions, Councillor Stuttery?
Yeah, well, thank you for the action plan. It is a big action. Really, it's going to go through the audit government. So I think scrutiny of these things is key. Maybe that's where we will strengthen our reaction to take, and the members take more responsibility around the government's scrutiny of these things to work collaboratively. And that's the joint way. And the question would be, I'm evident that we started the meeting with the union talking to us about elements of this, and they were talking about very much elements which were in the report, and it doesn't state overtly that they are being consulted. I believe that would be prudent to work collaboratively with the unions, with some of the things that they would say would actually quicken the process, and full understanding about how we get somewhere got to be right. And so I'm speaking an assurance through you that will take place, because to miss that opportunity would seem less than sensible and probably quite counterproductive, to be honest, if you don't include it.
No, I agree. And actually, this is the first time I had a chance to speak to Chris, actually, but I met him beforehand and we've already got a meeting set in the diary. And you're right, we wouldn't ever dream of working in isolation. There's such an important piece of work that we need to do. And we already have meetings built in, and I know Nick's focused on those, as has the chair too. So
There's certain things you pick up in the workplace, whatever workplace you work in, that people who, like ourselves, looking here on paperwork won't see, because we're not actually on the ground doing these things, and it can save time and money and improve outcomes. So that's what we're all here to do.
Yeah, I agree.
Councillor Donald.
So I just wanted to pick up on point 3.4.1 in particular, which is about the workplace facilities, which we have talked a lot about. Now, we've got it listed as green, and I'm a bit concerned that we may want to reconsider that in light of some of the things that we've heard today, and be very keen again, to ask our frontline officers there to absolutely get that at the list. I'm also concerned, and we have talked to Rec about this before, and I think probably something for Councillor Walsh to take away. We put aside 25,000, but we know that actually some of the real remediations will take a lot more than that. So it would be really good to start to understand that budget line. And so really understand station by station what work is needed to improve the facilities, and actually what is the budget required to do that, so that it's very clearly stated when we do our budget rounds this year, that we can absolutely see that the need and the budget match up, or there's nothing for it to match up.
Yeah, so it's green because it's on track, but it is a long-term piece of work. So as you see the deadline, this is March 2025.
Yeah.
So this is getting a kind of a standard across all our stations, what good looks like in terms of facilities for welfare, and not just welfare, equality, diversity, also just the practicalities, how much space do you need for the meeting rooms and stuff like that. Because as Chris was saying earlier, the meeting space, then let's use a space that was reserved for females for a meeting, so females can use that space. So stuff as being multi-purpose, when it'd be better to have it separate. As he said, some of it is sticking plaster, so that £25,000 a year is very much through the media. We can do it now, quick fix type of stuff. But whenever we do any work on station, we always look to improve ED&I as part of that. We do have a 5-year programme that was approved as part of the property strategy recently, which has got that in. But as always, we work with the ED&I group closely to identify these issues. And as they do come up, we have got, for example, a transformation reserve that as we start to identify some of these long-term issues where we can do bigger pieces of work that aren't just sticking plasters, we can identify necessary funds to do that as well.
So just a point of clarification there. You saying that the March 25 date is just the date for the plan, not the date for the works?
Yeah.
Okay, I think that's a rather unambitious.
Okay.
I would like to see that we can accelerate that in any way.
Yeah, we'll look to continue to improve all the time. This isn't just about facilities either. This is also about welfare incidents and a whole host of other things as well. Obviously, we'll do the work as quick as we can, but we have a limited property department and we've got some big projects on in terms of, for example, Unit 7. So it's trying to manage all of those competing priorities as well.
Just, I don't want to labour the point too much, but I think one of the things that came out from, I think, the presentation from Chris, just for us to think about is I think it's sometimes organisations can get to a sort of a level of tolerance of things because they've been around for so long. And I think just as a cultural thing, I think the message from the authorities, we've got to get to a really low level of tolerance where there are things that are impacting upon the ability of people to, particularly in the cases that we're talking about for female changing facilities, etc. So I think the message just, and I hear the point about resources. So I think my challenge back is help us understand what it would take to really execute plans to fix some of this stuff faster. And I think the level of tolerance that we should have needs to dramatically drop.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We were looking, as we said, immediately station Newport Bagdell. I was just looking for the plans now. I can't immediately see on the plans what he's referring to as a cupboard at Newport Bagdell. There is dedicated female changing facilities there. So sometimes crews will use rooms for purposes that's not planned for. They rededicate stuff. So we'll have a look at that. But in terms of what I can see on the plan, there is a dedicated female facility at Newport Bagdell for them to get changed in. So I have to have a script as to what he's referring to when he says cupboard.
Okay. Could you, I think what might be helpful for members is if we could get station by station just assessment of how fit for purpose you think the stations are and where there are issues that we've got real visibility to it, and then visibility to what the actions are. I think helpful.
Yeah, and that's what the action 3.4.1 that Councillor Darlington was asking was really driving as to this is what we want stations to look like. This is the current situation. These are the gaps. This is how we're going to fix them.
Any other questions, comments? No, okay. I think it probably goes without saying, but just in case. I'd like this report to come to every fire authority meeting, so there's no a standard agenda item, and I know it's not still me and overviewing it as well. Yeah. Right, so I think we are being asked to, sorry, no, 1.3, thank you. We're being asked to note the action point. That's you say. Right, thank you for waiting very patiently, Marie. Over to you.
Thank you. Just going to start my presentation. Thank you, Chair, and thank you for giving me the time to present about Library today. Just want to update you on where we are with our accreditation application and the work that we have committed, that we've completed so far. So our White Ribbon paper was presented to the Business Transformation Board and the Strategic Management Board back in May, and that was to seek approval to go forward and seek accreditation as an organisation. We had budget growth bid to support that, and our application process started in July, and we've now got a White Ribbon steering group that has been put together by consists of a number of people across the organisation. It's not just officers of the organisation, it's a group completely across the organisation. The accreditation was received in August of this year, and I've brought our glass plaque to show you all today. And this plaque is going to be displayed, thank you, displayed in the reception of the headquarters building. I also have, however, an electronic copy of our certificate, and the aim is to get a certificate printed and framed, and each of our sites across the estate will have a copy of that accreditation displayed, as well as the White Ribbon Promise QR code. Our logo, the Bucks Fire and Rescue Service logo, has now been sent to White Ribbon, and if you search for it, you can actually see it on the website, and that will be a reciprocal arrangement in that we will have White Ribbon accreditation at some point on our new website. So our current work, some of you will know that White Ribbon, the formal White Ribbon Day was the 25th of November. We had a number of activities that took place on the 25th of November, and we have now been working on the 16 days of action, or 16 days of activism, as some people call it. So we've had a number of events that have taken place. We've had intranet articles published. We've held events. We've attended other organisational events as well. So, as I said, we're in the middle of the 16 days of action. We've had on-site presentations. We've had links to external sites, so links to webinars, asking people to dial into those. Some of you may have seen our social media campaign, which has had fantastic support from the Marcoms team, and also the marketing comms team have helped us put together our White Ribbon stand, which we aim to take out continuously to various events. And obviously the presentation here today. Now, today is quite a significant day in that it's the White Ribbon Day of Memory. So it's the point at which we remember all of those people who have been directly affected by some kind of violence towards them. It's not just women and girls, it is males as well, but we're concentrating on because it's disproportionately larger, the numbers are larger. Other activities that we've attended, 3 members of our action group attended the National White Ribbon Conference in September. That was at Villa Park, where we were able to network with a lot of other organisations. And I'm pleased to say we went into a sector session at one point, and the fire service sector consisted of 3 tables, was by far the largest that was there, which was really pleasing to see. Personally, I've attended the Thames Valley Police Violence Against Women and Girls event that was held in October at Kidlington, and that showcased the work that Thames Valley Police are doing, and I was able to network with some of the people there to look at how we might be able to dovetail in with some of their activities. We've had early discussions with Oxfordshire Fire and Rescue Service, who have also just received their accreditation, so we will be trying to work with them but we will also try and work with Berkshire, who are a little bit further behind us, but we will try and maintain those links as well. I've also had conversations with the Thames Valley Police and the Chief Council White Ribbon leads. So we are looking at how we can assist or move our own actions forward. One thing that did happen at the police event was that Lisa Squire was in attendance then. Now, Lisa Squire is the mother of Libby, who lost her life. She was murdered whilst at university in Hull. And she is doing a lot of work going into schools to try and make people aware of how safe they could make themselves, but also opening those conversations about how people could help others if they were seen in situations that don't feel quite right, is basically what we're saying. And to try and raise the awareness of bystanders training, but it's active bystander or upstander training. So as part of our 3-year action plan, we will be looking at how we can promote that throughout service. Our next steps, so after Christmas, after we finish our 16 days of activism, we will have a small working group. So it's the working group that I've got at the moment, plus others, hopefully, will start to work on a 3-year action plan. And that is, how do we make changes? How do we raise awareness? How do we promote the fact that we are a White Ribbon accredited organisation and build it into all our day-to-day activities? That action plan has to be submitted to White Ribbon by the 14th of February. And we're envisaging that the plan will focus in the first year on raising internal awareness, making sure that as many people in the organisation sign up to make their promise. And then the remaining 2 years will focus on maintaining that internal focus, but also how do we promote it within our communities, and how can we say, actively help other organisations to promote White Ribbon. So the governance around this campaign is the steering group is chaired by a male member of staff, because White Ribbon is a male-led campaign. I don't know if any of you are aware, but the White Ribbon campaign was born in Canada. A male entered a university in Canada. He had some very misogynistic views. He separated other students into male and female groups and then opened fire on the female group. That is how White Ribbon started, because colleagues, staff in that university said, how can we stop this? How can we stop having these views? So that's how White Ribbon was born, and now it's a global movement. So we will present regular highlight reports to BTB and the Strategic Management Board. We will have regular verbal updates to be delivered to the Executive Committee as requested by the Chair previously. And we also have to present an annual review to White Ribbon themselves to ensure that progress is being made against our 3-year action plan, and that will also be presented in-house. And also, White Ribbon is on the agenda of the Thames Valley Collaboration Boards. I'd just like to end my presentation. I do have a video that has been put together by a member, one of our White Ribbon champions, a member of our ICT team. I'm in two minds as to whether to show it to you. It's very impactful. It does show pictures of victims. So I think I may not show it now, but if anybody wants to see it afterwards, I'm happy to show it. So this, I think I should show it. So I'm just going to show you some pictures of some of the activities that we've done. I can go to the video at the end. We, on White Ribbon Day itself, because that fell on a Saturday this year, we invited ladies, women, children from Wickham Women's Aid to come in and visit High Wycombe Fire Station. So it was a very low-key event. We didn't publicise it because we're conscious of the people that were coming in, but it was an opportunity for those women to bring their children in. We had some dressing up, we had colouring, we had, sweets, all that kind of stuff. And we, the crews were very welcoming and showed them round the fire station, around the appliances. Because we didn't know, we've never done that before, we didn't know what impact or what the uptake would be. So we had all of this in preparation. We didn't know if we were going to get anybody turn up. We actually had about 7 women turn up and about 15 children. So we felt that it was a real success. They then, when we were talking to them, they said it was an amazing opportunity for them to come into somewhere that they wouldn't really normally come to, and that they would spread the word if we were to run something like that again. So we've got all sorts of ideas on what we can do in the future, but we would like to spread it across the organisation and make contact in Aylesbury and also with Kayak and Milton Keynes. Myself and Joe Cook also attended the Milton Keynes White Ribbon Vigil on White Ribbon Day, so that was that afternoon. I found that very impactful. There were some really strong speeches, and then we all had a candlelit vigil across at the Milton Keynes Rose. And I took members of my family, and they were really moved by it. So that was an amazing event. I was contacted by one of our watch commanders at Beaconsfield, and he volunteered to organise us having our stand at Beaconsfield Motorway Services. So we had the opportunity to speak to members of the public, but also the crew work. I don't know if anybody is aware of Beaconsfield Services. It's quite large. The crews worked the room. They went and engaged with everybody that was in that services, handed out the little cards that we've got, and also fabric white ribbons. And our engagement was excellent. So, and the first picture there is a member of the public who was happy to have a photo taken with us because 2 members of his family had been affected and was really anxious to come and share his support. We had last week a couple of drop-in events at Aylesbury Fire Station where the stand that you see outside, we asked people to come down, engage with us, take part in the activities that we've put together, and also make their pledge. And from just the headquarters Unit 7 sites last week, we were able to sign up to make their promise. So that we felt that was a really successful event. I've also put a presentation together to go to all of our stations. I presented that last week to our watch commanders, and I've already had requests to go out and present it to watches. So that's something that we'll be working on as well. So I'm just going to finish on the promise. So if anybody hasn't made their promise, please come and see us stand outside to sign up, and we'll present you with your enamel pin. So that's it for the show. I'm happy to play the video. It's up.
Yeah.
There will be something. Woman, she has a high especially. Bear with me. Do you want to ask if there are any questions or anything or not?
Yeah, sure.
Put the video together.
Any questions from Marie? Comments? Councillor Darlington?
First of all, I just want to say a huge thank you to you and the team. And I know it seems wasn't that long ago that I was going, yes, we should do this, we should do this. And we've really, really come a long way. And I just think, as you've mentioned, I was a young person in Montreal when that shooting happened at École Polytechnique, and it was men that stood up and said, hang on a second, the majority of men would never consider harassing a woman or harassing or violence against women and girls. Why aren't we the majority? And quite frankly, I would love to say it's gotten better since then, but it's actually gotten worse in the environment for women and girls with the advent of people like Andrew Tate and many others online who use this platform to essentially radicalize young men in this area. And there's is something I talk to TVP a lot about why we don't address it the same way we do some of the other radicalization that happens online. It is very much led by men, and women are there to support, but it's about changing that balance of saying, why is it always women that have to call out this behavior? Women should be able to walk in any environment and know that instead of having silent men, that they are going to call out the behavior and say, that doesn't happen here at the fire and rescue service, that behavior is not acceptable. And that's the kind of confidence we're hoping to provide to people through the campaign. Two things I just wanted to say is first of all, thank you. Second of all, one of the things that we were able to get TVP to do last year, and again this year, is to have senior or in uniform officers be a part of this and give speeches. And Ewan gave the speech at our White Ribbon Vigil. And yes, we do have women's voices in that. You know, I spoke, and Lim spoke as High Sheriff, and others who are very passionate about this issue. But also, it's really important, being that firefighters are role models to young men and how it is to be a man, what it is to look like a good man, how, you know, and actually we've seen the improvement that I can have on mental health as well to demonstrate what it is to be a man. And it would be really, really great to see more of that happening. If we could see more senior or just uniformed officers, male officers going out there and delivering this message, because that is that wider campaign that exactly as you're talking about, how do we then bring this out into the community? And you all are role models. And you may not feel like it, but you are perceived as leaders and role models in our communities. And finally, just to say, you know, I appreciate it's a 3-year commitment, but I'm hoping very much from our perspective, this is a lifelong commitment, and that it goes right the way through some of our EDI and culture issues. And if we could please extend that moving from bystanders to upstanders training to the whole board as well, I would really appreciate that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Everybody doesn't sound to me.
Woman feels the violence of men and many experience. They have a terror of places that are already abandoned on the margin.
Why don't, why don't you circulate the link to members and then separate? Yeah.
This is where the sense around this.
Yeah, we'll circulate the link so members can. Yeah, great.
I think that's just much. I think in the forward we can use it on our social media platform to put it out for wider spectrum.
We'll put it on the Bucksfire YouTube.
Because we can put it out so that people see it.
Yeah. Good. Any other questions, comments for Marie? No, thank you very much. Really pleased to see the progress, and really good to see the things the teams are doing. I'm sure we are, but let's make sure we promote that. So just before we move to item number 17, I just need to make members aware that we may, well, I think we almost certainly are going to have to move the February Executive Committee meeting because it clashes with the higher performance oversight group meeting that both me and I'll just read it. Yeah, so we won't be able to do the, they're not going to move that meeting, so we're going to have to move the executive meeting on folks just let you know about that. So that moves to item number 17, to consider excluding the public and press representatives from the meeting by section paragraph 1 of part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, as the minutes contains information relating to any individual. Paragraph 3 of part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, as the minutes contain information relating to the financial or business affairs of a person, including your authority, And on these grounds, it's considered that you need to give information exempt. That weighs the public interest in disclosing information. Members happy to exclude? First comment.
Yeah, very
Thank you.